At the end of the day, most organizations, if they are successful enough and stick around long enough, will go out of business because they've been around long enough and they've been successful. The quintessential example of this is Kodak, right? They invented the digital camera and now they're gone because they wouldn't acknowledge the risk that was coming from this potential disruption, and they refused to disrupt their own core business. Now, I am not suggesting that everybody out there needs to disrupt their own core business. What I am suggesting is that the Kodak example is a perfect case study in linear thinking. And one of the things that humans do well, for the most part, is linear thinking. And I think that's because that's the way we're wired in many ways. We're not wired to think exponentially. No one is. Yet, to truly understand what risks are out there and what that means for your organization, you've got to start to think a little bit more deeply and think very critically about the fact that tomorrow is probably not going to look like today. And if I got up today thinking that today looked like yesterday, that I'm already at a disadvantage in the way that I'm thinking about things. So when we talk about risk, I think that what you can do is start to understand that the continuity and the linear nature of the world that you've created and constructed and poured your blood, sweat, and tears into is really an illusion. And that there is no guarantee that tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter is going to look anything like today or yesterday. So you need to start asking yourself the question, what could it look like? And what are the things that are out there that I am seeing that could impact even my small corner of the world, whether it's AI or something else more industry specific? Because one of the things that is inherent in capitalism as well as in human nature is the idea of disruption. People are always looking to do it better, faster, cheaper, more efficiently. We're looking to change things. And so just like the old ice houses of 100 years ago are now gone and replaced by refrigerators in everybody's home, so too are there disruptions coming for your entity, your business, your organization. And if you step back, put on your futurist hat, start to broadly scan the environment and look at what's going on locally, regionally, state, national, look at the trends. That's your key to unlocking that question of risk that you posed to me, Bill.
And that's what I did a couple years ago. I was in the staffing business. I wasn't in the automation business at the time. And I said to myself, is like when ChatGPT or even before that, I was like, if I'm doing staffing, international staffing as an individual out of Ephrata, like we're probably coming to the end of that curve, right?
Right.
International businesses have been doing this for a long time. They were already automating, bringing things back into the country. So I'm probably coming to the end of my S curve here, and I need to start a new S curve. Those of you who aren't familiar with The Innovator Solution and the Innovator's Dilemma by Christensen. Those are great books to think about technologies and how to, disrupt your own business. But I was just thinking about that. And I figure we'll plan on things going wrong. And if they go right, we'll work it in, And so,
Yep.
What is the next step? How do I make my, and I love what Jeff Bezos says is people would say, what's going to be different in 20 years? He says, no, I like to think of what's not going to be different, and nobody's probably going to go 20 years from now. I love Amazon, but I wish they delivered slower, right? Do we want our people to be more productive 20 years from now or 1 year or 2 days from now? Of course. All right. So thinking about that in the organization, what is not going to change, right? What are people going to want more of that we can do? And how are we going to need to be, how can we use AI to get that done? And for some, that's going to be a little bit harder than others. But the great thing about AI is you can have it help you learn how to use it.
Yes, that's exactly right.
It's like, it is so almost counterintuitive because, before, when you had a computer, you'd be like, okay, what do I do? Am I going to break it? No, you need to dig in, you could be typing, but I could, if you had a DOS system, you could be typing for a long time before you got a command prompt that would actually do anything, right?
Yep.
It would, but it's not that way anymore where you can utilize these tools and, some of the thinking tools are, the strategy you can get out of them is pretty darn amazing. So